So it's night 33, and for my pajama shirt tonight, I have Justin Trudeau, Canada. I don't want to argue about politics. I just want to say he's super hot. And it's not very often you get a president, I'd have used Obama's, that's hot enough to be a t-shirt god. Look at it, too. They went crazy. They put the geese, everything Canadian on here. There's a moose, and it just says Canada in giant letters. I don't even know where I got it. I think the internet. Okay, so tonight, little Jameson cold brew. I bet a lot of you didn't even know this exists. Yeah, it does. It's a little JMO with a coffee flavor, so you can drink it in the morning and not feel guilty. You'll feel fine. Tulips are still doing good. Tanya's going to record Delta Dawn. That's where she's at. She's about age 12 or 13, I believe, at this point. They're deciding what to put on the B-side of Delta Dawn, the single. Billy decided to go with Delta Dawn, and Dolores Fuller's Take Care of You From Me. Daddy had stayed at the hotel that day that decision was reached. Dolores says Daddy's desire to protect me by controlling things was always a problem in his studio and at meetings, and that Billy wanted him out of there. Well, I can kind of side with Billy on that. Billy doesn't remember it like that, but Dad was definitely uncomfortable around Billy Sherrill. Up to that point, my dad had been in charge. Well, yes, he'd been kicking doors down. He'd threatened to shoot people, and he had a gun. So I'd say that's, guys, going to make a few people uncomfortable. Maybe not everybody, but some people. Now someone else was temporarily taking over to ease the situation and possibly to appease Dolores. Dad stayed away from time to time. He phoned my mother and said he felt like he was being turned into a butt kisser. You don't have to do that, Bo, she said. There's Tanya's daddy, and you're Tanya's daddy, and you ought to be getting some respect out there. I don't give a damn, Juanita. He said, we're just going to get things done. If it'll help Tanya get going, I'll kiss every rear end between here and New York. Well, that's pretty conciliatory for Tanya's daddy. Billy, Dolores, and I listened to Delta Dawn and the other songs, and by the time I got back to King of the Road Motel that night, I was so tired I could barely hold my head up. It was late, and they decided to record at 10 a.m. the next morning, and I asked Daddy to play Delta Dawn on our little tape recorder while I was going to sleep so I could learn it even better. I wanted to knock everybody's socks off. Daddy said he stayed up half the night playing the song by my ear, then rewinding the tape and playing it again. I really didn't understand what the song was about. I knew that some lady had gone crazy and was wandering the streets wearing an old faded flower. I knew her daddy still called her baby, but the concept of losing a lover and going insane over it was beyond me. Yeah. 12 or 13 at the most. I like the words, though, and the musical feel of the song. The next day, March 17th, 1972, I arrived at Columbia's 16th Avenue studio at 10 a.m. sharp, and for the first time met the musicians who were going to back me up. Billy brought in the best in town. Some musicians pay attention to the music tracks only, and the lyrics aren't particularly of any interest to them. Billy tried to find those musicians who wanted to hear every line, every change of mood in a song and back it up with their instrumentation. Sorry, my apologies there. The session leader was Pete Drake, the legendary steel player who Billy said loved making hits more than almost any musician in the world. Pete was a real song man. That's in quotes. Pig Robbins was on piano. Of course he was. Billy Stanford on guitar and Charlie McCoy on harmonica and vibes, along with the other members of the Nashville A-Team, Harry Strzelecki, Jerry Corrigan, Tommy Alsop, and Ray Eddington. I walked in and Billy introduced me to everyone. I loved everything about the studio, the seedy-looking carpets, overflowing ashtrays, and Coke cans strung out through the place. I didn't feel nervous, though, although I figured the band thought Billy was headed for the nut house for signing a 13-year-old kid. I said, well, I know my part, boys. Do you know yours? That loosened things up right away. I belted out the two songs, and any reservations I heard about the band's attitude were quelled by the smiles on their faces. Later, many of them said they never questioned my age. After all, Billy Sherrill believed. Dolores Fuller believed, too. She believed so strongly that we made a hit record that after we returned to Vegas, the first thing she did was drive to L.A. and buy a brand new Lincoln and a house full of new sound equipment. She called us when she got back, and she said she had a present for me to celebrate the recording of my first hit song. Then she wheeled the new Lincoln in the driveway and gave me her old taping equipment. Later, she told the press that she'd have taken me to L.A. and paid a lot of money to have work done on my teeth. That never happened. Promises, promises. Delta Dong is the song I most often close with at my show, and it's still the one most requested. I'll go to my grave thanking whatever angel got Billy to tune in to the Johnny Carson show that night. It made me a star back then, but it made me the proudest a few years ago. That's when he heard it. It wasn't her on Johnny Carson at that point. Somebody else did it at that point. I was playing a show in Texas and received a note that there was a little girl with Down syndrome in the audience who wanted to come backstage. When she and her parents got there, her dad told me that until she was 8 years old, she never spoke. They bought one of my tapes and were playing it around the house. And one day, the little girl stood in the middle of the room and began to sing Delta Dawn. And she's spoken ever since. I teared up. It was such a miracle. It also reminded me that music can be a powerful thing. Delta Dawn entered the charts on May 13th, 1972. We started getting some offers to play shows. We couldn't afford to get a bus or hire a band, so we'd take off in our old station wagon, and I'd rely on house bands or the headliner's band. If we were using a band at some venue, house band, we'd send off to them a cassette tape of Delta Dawn and some of the songs I'd like to sing. If we were lucky, they'd learn Delta Dawn. More often than not, I just had to wing it and sing whatever standards we both knew. Womp, womp. I opened the shows for artists like Tommy Cash, Nate Stuckey, and Marty Robbins. It was exciting to be around these stars, although since I was so young, they usually didn't have much to say to me. Sometimes they'd talk to my dad about promoters or bus problems or getting stiffed on the show. I'd stand there and listen and try to get some kind of feel for what this business is all about. More often than not, I heard about the downside of it. One person I was a little starstruck by from the beginning was Tom T. Hall. Maybe it's his manner. He has a very powerful presence, or the fact that he's a great songwriter, but you never forget that he's a star. I love to sit and listen to him talk because he's educated and so well-spoken. I always figured that maybe I'd learn something just from being around him. I would hope they'd put right there, osmosis-like. They didn't write that. They made that up. If anything, I started to see how he dealt with all sorts of people. Entertainers have to be able to get along with fans, music people, political people, and sports people. What? No, we don't. I don't know any professional athletes. I mean, if I do, I don't know they're an athlete. I might know them, but sports people, how odd. And they have to be comfortable with that. I've become pretty good at it. And my first training, and political people, no. There was an Arizona politician who said he liked me, and then he said he didn't like the fact that I said baby Jesus. He thought I was doing that sarcastically, and he was correct. Clearly he's not Catholic and just couldn't get over that hump, and so he unfollowed me on Twitter. That's as far as I've gotten with politics. I've become pretty good at doing all that, and maybe my first training started all those years ago listening to Tom T. Hall. That's a good place to stop. What else are you guys doing? Told you what I was watching. Plot Against America on HBO. Have you seen that? Pretty good. Lewis recommended that, and there's a lot of them. It's hard going, though. It's not a ha-ha funny show. It's intense drama if Charles Lindbergh had become the president. What? It was a good book. Philip Roth wrote the book. All right. What do we say, termites? When it's time to go to bed, we say night-night, termites. That's it.